First of all, Ed Piotrowski emerged from the bowels of corporate, now this is from his bio. He emerged from the bowels of corporate America after 35 years to retire and spend more time on the equally challenging hobbies of writing and fishing, recently completing his memoir, A Life Well Fished, Real Adventures and the Stuff That Happened in Between, which is available for $10 tonight, which is very, very good. I bought that book after he read with Waterline Writers in May of 2016, and it's just a great book to have around. It's like a companion. You can pick it up at any time, and you don't have to read it, front to back. It's just very interesting. You might find yourself in Ed's equally ominous childhood basement or one of his parochial classrooms. You might join his college escapades and fall in love with his wife Joanne right along with him. You'll barely survive harrowing northwood storms on a lake, and you'll feel the Vietnam War looming on your horizon. You'll have to buy the book to get all that, but like the bulk of the book, this chapter fully immerses us in the mind of a fisherman, which is full of very odd things indeed. And like the book so often is, it's funny. Sorry. Ed Piotrowski. Ed. That's it.
Is this good?
Is it good?
Is it good?
Is that good?
Is that good? It's good. Am I in the right place? Is this the Waterline fishing seminar? Of course it's not. Of course it's not, and of course I'm in the right place. I'd like to thank Ann, Kevin, and all the folks here at Waterline. Ann and I thought there might be perhaps one or two of you in the audience unfamiliar with musky fishing equipment. So she asked if I'd do a quick show and tell as a lead into my story. So here goes. Fishing equipment on steroids, 30 years in 30 seconds. Make sure I don't knock something down. Okay. 8.5-foot graphite rod, big old reel spooled with 100 yards, and that's the length of a football field, of 100-pound test line, topped by a 100-pound test steel leader. Now, with that setup, you can cast the following selection of lures. Crankbait, twin spinner with a tinsel skirt and a twister tail, overhead spinner, and perhaps the most aptly named of the group, representing both the lure and the fisherman, the jerk bait. On a quick note before I begin the story, there is some female dialogue, and my voice doesn't do that particularly well, so please use your imagination when we get to those parts. I'll begin my piece, A Fishy Encounter in the Retail Garden of Eden, with a quote from outdoor humorist Coos Brandt. My biggest worry is that my wife, when I'm dead, will sell my fishing gear for what I paid for it.
Well, you said you paid for it.
Well, I'm sorry, what? What I said I paid for it. Thank you. Sorry. Let's hope the rest of this goes better. Okay. Despite decades of on-water experience fishing for virtually every species of freshwater fish, a 1990s trip to northern Wisconsin provides my introduction to the world of hardcore angling that targets the muskellunge, the mean and toothy legendary fish of 10,000 casts. This new frontier of hunting giant fish intimidates. A pool cue rod, a reel that overflows the palm of the hand, lined the diameter of industrial thread, a 12-inch steel leader, and a wooden 8-inch lure carved in the shape of a police baton, dangling multiple sets of ominous, scalpel-sharp treble hooks. For a brief moment, I wonder if this is a fishing setup or a medieval torture device. My lack of familiarity with the heavy-duty equipment prompts embarrassing ineptitude with casts and retrieves. Though technique improves as the afternoon progresses, I begin to question the effort-reward ratio of this strenuous fishing method. 7 hours later, followless and fishless, night overtakes dusk as we return to the cottage. Muscles burn and joints scream after only several hundred casts on the way to 10,000. Maybe musky fishing isn't for me. The next morning, I catapult the first cast with the thought, this is baloney. On the retrieve's second downward stroke, I encounter resistance similar to the grab of weeds that occurred numerous times yesterday. Instead of using an aggressive hook-setting pull, as one should do in every such instance, I ease the rod horizontally with a half-hearted tug. A millisecond hence, I stagger at the sight of a 3 to 4 foot muskellunge arcing from the water. The back hook in the corner of its mouth, the lure whips back and forth opposite raging head thrashes. The lure flings free at the height of the leap. The fish was no longer hooked, but I was. Over as quickly as it began, a slow motion replay brands my memory. So this is musky fishing. Hours, days, perhaps weeks of extreme effort without an equitable payoff, settling for whatever gratification trickles from a tease, acknowledging the splash of unrequited love. Oddly enough, I'm good with that. Now, much older but only slightly wiser, I estimate my decades-long accumulation of musky lures follows the 80-20 rule. Taking some liberties with the concept, following are several fishing-related examples of this maxim. 80% of the fish swim in 20% of the water. 80% of fish are caught by 20% of fishermen, and as it applies to my musky lure purchases, 80% haven't caught one. Only 20% have had the pleasure of bringing a muskie to net. In formal fishing vernacular, that 80% falls into either of two categories, costly mistakes or very costly mistakes. The weight of my muskie tackle box exceeds most of the muskies I catch. With so many lures crammed into it, I've tired of the barrel of monkeys game that occurs when I reach in to pluck one of them and end up with a 3-foot-long chain of lures, which, by the way, is longer than most of the muskies I catch. Muskie lures are pricey, most in the $15 to $30 range. With my humongo box in overflow status, my annual goal is now 0 new purchases. This self-imposed restriction can turn a visit to a sporting goods retailer into a browbeating and sometimes otherworldly experience. It starts innocently enough, no harm in looking, right? Upon entering an outfitter store, I am a dog on the point, making a beeline to the aisle with the musky lures. My happy endorphins pump wildly, like a 5-year-old in Toys R Us the week before Christmas. My wife, Joanne, understands the dynamics of this scenario, having witnessed it on numerous occasions in wonderment and pathetic disgust. She recognizes the male fisherman's genetic code is encrypted to open a wallet and have cash fly out in the face of reason. She is not with me today, but I can hear her words, repeated on numerous occasions, simple, eloquent, and indisputable. If you are in the right place at the right time and the fish is ready to bite, the type of lure and its color are of little, if any, consequence. Lures catch more fishermen than fish. Translation, you don't need any more lures. I reached the promised land greeted by a kaleidoscope of colors, sizes, styles, and shapes that mesmerize. Fortunately, I no longer need to own them all, those 37 quintillion combinations. Still, sensory overload whisks me to the junction where dream challenges reality. Euphoria interrupted by the subtle sound of someone seeking my attention, I swivel my head in both directions. Not a soul to be found, it must be my imagination. Psst, over here. Is it my imagination? It must be my imagination. Who is it? Who's there? It's me, Eve. I've been waiting for you. Befuddled, I move in the direction of the voice. After but a few steps, a vision of incomparable beauty comes into view. Stunning, stunned, I fixate on a voluptuous pair of rounded blades, golden delicious. The sweetest apples in this garden are ripe for the picking. Blonde highlights swirled the length of her silky cafe noir hair. The refined charm and innocence bespeak a classic aura last captured in the Mona Lisa. I knew you'd come looking for me, her words spoken in an enticing, throaty tone. Ensnared in a Salvador Dali painting come to life, my arm moves toward her, but my conscience stops me in mid-reach. I don't need another lure. I could fish through the continuum of eternity and not catch a fish on every musky lure I've ever purchased. I'm glad you're here, the allure of her voice becoming increasingly sultry. My ability to reason lost in her words, I lift her off the rack with great care and tenderness. My fingers gently stroke her kitten's soft hair, sliding to the treble tips of Cupid's arrows before finally tracing the perfectly shaped twister tail of her soft curve of her twister, of her soft alabaster-colored tail. I snap back to reality. No, this is so wrong. This is wrong. I don't need any more lures. Not a one. Back you go. As I turn to leave, her voice again beckons, this time a pouting plea as if wounded by my intent to depart. Oh, please, please don't disappoint me. I know how difficult this must be for you. I just don't want you to be disappointed. This will be our secret. No one has to know, not even your wife. The time machine transporting me to next week in the Canadian wilderness, I see myself lifting her out of my tackle box for the first time, newlyweds crossing the threshold as a subtle breeze seductively lifts the irregular edge of her delicate skirt, wafting hair surrendering to the zephyr like a model in a swimsuit photo shoot on a tropical beach. She continues, you work hard. You deserve the pleasures in life that I can help bring. You can't afford to take me, but can you afford not to? Those big, mean muskies have never seen anything that looks like me. Can't you picture us working in harmony next week on Forest Lake? With each smooth turn of the reel handle, our moves will be synchronized as you move me with delicate and masterful precision over the reefs, around and through the stands of reeds. My pulsing vibration will be irresistible. Let's do something wild. Let's go leaderless. Envision a fish of massive proportion rising from the depths, following me in hot pursuit, nearing the boat with rhythmic bursts of speed. Our hearts will race as one. As daylight gives way to evening and the full moon rises, you can bulge me over the milfoil bed, the beautiful Canadian sunset to the stage, the call of the loon, the music for our dance on the lake's mirrored surface. Each choreographed cast culminating in a long, fluid, perfectly executed figure eight, the symbol of infinity connecting us. Take me now. Yes, I want you, but I can't have you. If I take you, both of us will be cast into the river Styx. Coming here was a major mistake. I have to go home now. At that moment, a couple of heads peer around the corner, wondering what all the commotion is about. I glance down the length of the aisle as if looking for the responsible party. My bluff fails. I am the lone occupant caught deep to the elbow in the proverbial cookie jar. Re-engaging the gaze of the wide-eyed and wildly frightened observers, I flash them a Gomer Pyle smile wrapped in a rosy complexion blush. My sheepish acknowledgement sends them scurrying, their heads negatively nodding in disbelief before turning my way for one final look, as if to make sure I'm not following them. Emotionally spent by the series of strange events, I move toward the exit, the tear-filled voice fading with my every step. If you don't take me, someone else will. I don't want you to miss the fish of a lifetime. Just know that I really, really want to go with you. I freeze in my tracks, the furiously pounding beat of my heart filling every ounce of my being with uncertainty. The classic and complex struggle of heart versus mind, love versus logic, demands a decision. The next voice I hear is the store clerk behind the register. That'll be $24.95, sir, cash check or charge. During the ride home, I am not pleased with my lack of resolve. After entering the garage, hints of shame and disgust surface as I tuck the bag behind the tackle boxes stored on the shelving unit. As I walk through the kitchen, my inability to put on a poker face betrays my attempt to conceal the illicit purchase from Joanne, who queries, "So, what did you buy?" I replied to the simple question in a defensive tone. "Oh, what do you mean?" "It's okay, dear, I understand. There are worse vices. You could be gambling or out carousing with other women. So, what is it? A rod? A reel? Did Rapunzel spin her golden hair into a new and improved super braid line that wrapped around your brain then plucked $30 from your wallet?" Removing the receipt from my pocket and placing it on the table, I slither out the doors, mumbling, "Something like that, hon, something like that." And in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce Eve.